All right, today we're going to talk about Gen 3 Hemi lifter problems. Let's get into it. All right, so I've been doing a little investigating on the Gen 3 Hemi lifter issue, and we get calls about it. We do Hemi cams, and we got a local shop that does police car maintenance. So we see, dead lifters and dead cams just all the time. So I hadn't never really, obviously we don't do Hemis like we do LSs. I mean, we just do LSs all day, every day. And we are seeing more and more of the Hemi stuff, but I haven't been building a bunch of them, so I'm not looking at it every day, so I don't see the issues. And so we got a lifter that we sell. This is a Marisa lifter, and I was looking at it, and I noticed there's, even though it's got a groove in it, like most lifters, like here's a LS lifter. So I mean, it's got a groove in it, and it's got a hole. But that hole doesn't, whereas like this LS lifter, that hole feeds the hydraulic unit in the body. So oil comes down a main gallery and enters this groove, and then pressurized oil can enter the body of the lifter. And then as it enters the body of the lifter, the way the check valve system works is, it pushes oil up through the body into the push rod and on up to the rocker, and that's how the system oils. Well, on a Hemi, that's not what's happening. So we have this hole, and that hole just goes into a void back here behind the wheel. And the factory one doesn't have this hole. And I don't have a factory lifter, unfortunately, but I'm assuming that they added these holes trying to put oil on the wheel. And there's another problem why, so the wheel dies and it kills the lifter, kills the lobe on the cam, and that's super common. LSs do it too, but not nearly like the Hemis. And one reason, let's walk over here to the block. So if we look up in we got this tube you see here. That's a oil gallery all the way down the block. So in previous generations, the crank is spinning, obviously, and it's slinging oil up on the lobes and the lifters and all that, so you get all of that splash lubrication. But with this design, this tube is in the way. In the later ones with piston oilers, the tube is even bigger. So it creates two problems. It kills the splash lubrication. It also makes it an absolute nightmare to put cam bearings in these turds. But so I was looking at the oiling system, and it works similarly to a LS. So the pump is feeding the block here. It goes in the filter, through the filter, out of the filter. It comes right here, and it tees down to feed the main, and then it tees up to feed this main gallery going all the way down the block. And then from that gallery, if you come, let's see, come over here. You got two holes. All right, these oil passages intersect that main gallery, and these go through the cylinder head, and then, so if we look, and there's one on each side. Let me pick this rocker assembly up. Yep, here we go. So if you see, we got oil coming in here, and we got oil coming in here. And the oil enters, all they done was it's got some clearance on that bolt. And oil is able to get around, and that's all the volume you have. and it's able to get around the threads right there and enter this shaft. All right, so it enters the shaft, and then, let me see. Have I got one off? Let me see if I got one off. And so there's oil holes. You can see these oil holes here inside the shaft in the rocker, and the center section of this rocker is a larger diameter than the very ends. And so we've got, can you see that little oil hole in there? Yeah. So that little oil hole right there feeds over. You see that channel right there. You can see the channel where they blocked it off, where they intersected the hole. It feeds into here, and then the oil has to go down the push rod to the lifter. So this system oils the lifter from the push rod. So it's got to make this whole journey through this third grade nonsense to get down to the lifter. And then we're pushing oil in the lifter from the top instead of from the side from the main gallery. That is a real issue. So think about it, every time that this thing is cut off, all of that oil is draining out of the push rods. And then not only that, the push rod to the ball cup, I mean, it's not a perfect fit, so it's not like it's sealed off. And, the Hemi has just horrible valve train geometry. And so none of that stuff is sealed up, and oil's puking out everywhere, and we're depending on all those connections to feed the most important part of the system, which is the lifter. So we got all of that mess. And then on top of that, if you can see the lifter bore, so you can see that lifter bore, how flat the angle is compared to the cylinder deck. So the difference, and we talk about bank angle when we're grinding cams, but like in a LS, for instance, the angle between the number 1 intake lobe and the number 2 intake lobe is 45 degrees. The angle between a Hemi intake lobe and on each bank is 105 degrees. So it's really, really flat, versus everybody else is like this. So the oil that's bypassing around the lifter on the bore is pouring right on the cam. But this angle is so flat that probably most of the oil is just dumping straight down and missing the cam, or the bulk of it is missing the cam. So all of those issues together are just a recipe for disaster. And you see the disaster every day, because this is just constant. I get calls, hey man, I need a replacement cam, need lifters. And then as time goes and that rocker assembly wears or gets full of trash or blocked up, then you just have diminishing amounts of oil making it to the lifter. And I haven't fully, I've got an MDS lifter apart, and it works similarly to the LS version, but I haven't fully, the way the channel and the solenoid, I don't have it in my mind exactly how when the solenoid, because the MDS lifter actually feeds in from the side like a normal lifter does. So I think when they turn the oil off to the side, that is allowing the main piston to collapse, and that's how they're making the MDS work. But most people's deleting that crap anyway, so it's not a major deal. But why in the world everybody isn't making a lifter that oils through the side like conventional wisdom would tell you to is just beyond me. Because, and again, you could still do it with this lifter, but all they would have to do, and the little hole is great, but the hole's going 90 degrees. We need to be squirting oil this way, not this way. So ideally, a little flat or a groove right here in the face would have been the most appropriate thing to do. And then the pressurized oil around here would just squirt directly on the wheel. So, I don't know why it's that way, but I fully understand now why these things have so many problems. And it wouldn't take, I mean, there's no fixing the rocker geometry and there's no fixing the lifter bank angle problem, but we could for sure make a way better lifter that would definitely hem up the bulk of these problems, in my opinion. But we're gonna look at it some more and daydream about it and see if we can come up with a way to make a better lifter. I don't know the solution today, but I thought that was just the craziest thing I ever seen for a system to oil backwards like that. So keep in mind that when you're doing all of these cam swaps and stuff, that whole rocker assembly needs to be fully disassembled, completely cleaned, and make sure that the rocker, it has a good fit to the shaft, because if it doesn't, all the pressure is just bleeding out around the rocker and the shaft itself, and it's not ever going to make it to the lifter. And I think a lot of that is why you see a lot of new installs, and I hear people talk about, I can't get the lifters to pump up, they won't quit ticking. And that's just all of that massive amount of air and time to get all the way back down to the lifter. It's just going to take a lot of time to bleed all that out. So I feel confident that soaking your lifters and priming the system is a really good idea in these situations. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I just don't think many people realize I had no idea that's how it worked till, I got to looking at the oil hole, and I'm like, man, where's the oil go in at? So, that's what led to all the rest of this. But anyway, we got a lot of Hemi work coming up, so we're going to probably do some build videos on some of this Hemi stuff as we go, and hopefully we can get somebody to help us make a lifter that's not junk like that is. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.